This podcast is for you. Your co-hosts Ben Dodge and Eric Huso at Effect Epic Consulting believe that your potential is limitless. Tapping into this potential is how you can affect epic results in your life, relationships, and business. Welcome to the Principles of Epic Growth.
Good morning, brother. How are you?
Good, man.
It's a great day today.
Dude, this is one of my favorite days. So I've been looking forward to this quite a bit.
Me too.
We have a guest speaker with us today. His name is Dan Cerrillo. Dan, how are you?
Excellent. How you guys doing?
Fantastic. So listen, Dan is a stud by every definition.
Yeah.
Even good looking guy, don't you think?
Yeah.
Dan is a Navy SEAL, and if I'm correct in saying this, you don't say former Navy SEAL. There's no such thing. He's a Navy SEAL, not currently on active duty. Is that the way to say that?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's funny. You know, Marines do the same thing. Like, you're a former Marine. Like, I am a Marine.
Yeah.
You know, me, the only thing that ever bothers me, they go, "You're an ex-SEAL." I'm like, no, ex-SEALs get kicked out. I am a retired SEAL. So
Beautiful.
That's right. So Dan Cerrillo is a Navy SEAL. I first got to meet him in a program called Kokoro. And honestly, Dan, I don't remember what Kokoro stands for, but I remember it felt like a butt kicking for 3 or 4 days. And it was an awesome program where you could go and learn some business leadership skills, some leadership skills in general. You can demonstrate and experience mental toughness from a Navy SEAL's viewpoint, so to speak, as they kind of work with you. And at that time period, Dan was less friendly only because he was in character. He was whipping us into shape. Anyways, it was awesome to get to know him then, and we're happy that he's with us today on our podcast. So we're going to discuss some incredible things.
Yeah. I first met Dan a year ago. He was a guest at our school. We brought him in on Veterans Day, and he spoke to our students, and a true American hero, a patriot, and a great leader, super impactful, whether he's working with adults or working with young people, just a true difference maker in the world. So really grateful to have Dan here with us today.
All right, Dan.
well, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Dan's currently in California right now, and so we're doing this over like a Skype call. And so
Actually, I'm in Seattle. I live in Seattle.
Oh,
I
you're
work
in
California.
Oh, you're in Seattle, but you work in California. Quite the traveler.
Quite the traveler.
All right, Dan. Let's start with some of your. Well, tell us what SEAL team you were a part of.
I was at SEAL Team 1 for 6 years, and I was an instructor for 3 years, and then I was one of the founding members of SEAL Team 7, and I was there for another 4 years.
Wow, that's awesome. And when did you go through BUD/S?
1994. Well, 1993, 94.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, 93, 94.
We were a young pup back then.
I was just starting high school, Dan.
I was a little older. Old man.
Dan, what inspired you to go on this path to become a Navy SEAL? I mean, it's for those that don't know, being a Navy SEAL is you're an elite class. And what inspired you to take that route versus a lower level route in the armed forces?
You know, it's funny. I kind of went through a big transition of my decision-making process. Obviously, like, you know, some kids in the teams, you know, I was kind of misguided. Typical, like some of us who work hard to get to where we are. You know, parents are kind of doing their own thing, and I was doing my own thing. And I was actually kind of anti-military, believe it or not. Mm-hmm. So I had moved 27 times growing up. Changed schools probably 7 or 8 times. And was generally pissed off at the military. You know, every time I got to have some friends, it was time to move. And
why is that? Were your parents?
My stepdad was a military guy.
Got it.
And so just generally pretty pissed off with the whole environment of moving. You know, these forced parties you're supposed to go to because dad's got to do the handshaking bit, and you know, a bunch of nerds, in my opinion. That's kind of the way I thought of guys. You know, like, hey, this guy's a nerd. You know, this guy's in charge of my pop. You know, whatever. So. Obviously I played a lot of sports growing up. I was always a wrestler. My stepfather made sure we always wrestled. We always played football. And so when it came time to deciding to go and do something with my life, I decided to go to college and attempt to be a football player, you know. And what I found out quickly was I'm a really good high school football player. I was a pretty mediocre college football player. I was able to get on the field as a freshman, but I just quickly learned that, you know, there's no NFL in my dreams or whatever. And so I'm working part-time at this place called Frankie's Fun Park, and I'm going to school. Well, basically, I'm showing up every now and then to school. I showed up a lot to football practice, obviously, but school was not in the realm, and the girls were kind of the priority.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember for some reason I just started, I was really lost, and so I just started getting up and working out, and I started buying books. And I'd always known what a Navy SEAL was. I remember seeing one in the commissary one time, and like, dude, that dude freaking, everybody was looking at him too. He's like wearing desert camis with a blue and gold shirt. We used to wear those way back in the day, and he's all tan and buffed out, and everybody else is in uniform, and they're just like clearing the path for this dude. I'm like, so I got my stepdad. I'm like, who the heck's that guy? He's like, oh, he's a frogman, And those guys are the Heat. And so when I decided to, go down the path, I called my Uncle Fred, who I had lived with when I was in the 8th grade. And I was like, what's the difference between a Ranger, a SEAL, a Force Recon guy? And he's like, Rangers, he was a Ranger and just did like 25 years as a Ranger. And he's like, Rangers are awesome. He's like, we do everything everybody else does. He's like, the difference is, there's the training's a little different. He's like, we're more infantry, we're more advanced infantry. He's like, but these SEAL guys, they just do a lot of stuff on their own. They're allowed to think a lot more. From the time they get there, they're allowed to make decisions. And it was one of those things. I was pretty rebellious. I still am.
I love that. I love that about you.
Yeah. And so I really like the aspect of being a free thinker, And so I didn't actually think I could make it. So I decided, okay, Marines have really cool uniforms, so I want to do this Force Recon thing. So I walked in the Force Recon office, and I'm like, hey, I want to be a Force Recon guy. And the guy's like, yeah, we don't even have that anymore. He's like, you'd like be a battalion recon guy. I'm like, shit, I really want to be this Force Recon guy, And so scratch that idea. So I walk over to the SF guy and, hey, I want to be a Special Forces guy. And he's like, yeah, you got to be in the military for 4 years and then become, Special Forces. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do that. These guys are all nerds. I don't want to be part of that regular stuff. So I finally walked into the Navy office and I'm like, hey, I want to be a SEAL. And the guy literally laughed at me. He's like, yeah, whatever. I'm like, no, I want to do it. And he's like, no, ha, ha, ha. And so he's like, okay, whatever. After I finally said my spiel, he sat me down from this video. It's an old video. It was called Be Someone Special. You can probably find it on YouTube. And it's like a 1970s terrible porn video, So I watched it and I was like, man, this is the bomb. I'm hooked, And so I went back and forth with the dude and finally got him to give me a PT test. And so obviously, being a wrestler, the physical training part of it was really easy for me. And so I just kind of crushed that test, and he's like, wow, you don't look the part. And I've never looked the part, obviously. I look like a wheelbarrow probably, or a keg of beer is what people tell me. But I can always do pull-ups, push-ups, and I can always run, So once I decided to do it, it was just hook, line, and sinker. And what was funny is, I didn't tell a lot of people because, it's one of those things where people don't know what it is, obviously, and then a lot of people are like, who did know it, or just laugh at you. And so by chance, my best friend in the whole world, Frankie Choyeski, I just happened to me and him having a beer one time, and he's like, hey, man, we lived in Charleston, South Carolina at the time. He's like, man, I'm getting out of here. And I was like, why? He's like, this sucks. I don't feel like going to college. He was 1 year behind me. I don't feel like going to college. Me and my dad are just fucking going at each other every day. He's a military kid like me. And I was like, what are you going to do? He's like, I'm going on the SEAL teams. I'm like, no way, dude. So am I. He's
That's
like,
awesome.
Yeah, blah, 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 whatever. And so we started training together.
Wow.
And we started really getting after it every single morning. And at that point, I wasn't a really good swimmer. And Frankie was a really good swimmer. He'd been doing, triathletes in high school. So he's one of those guys who knew about having a bike and being able to run and swim. And I really didn't have a clue about that, So I started training with him. And for some reason, we get up at 4 a.m. and train. I have no idea why to this day because I'm like, we didn't have jobs. Like, dude, I started work at like 5 p.m. What the fuck am I getting up at 4 a.m. for, right? So we trained and we trained and we trained. And he went to boot camp before me. And he came back and he's like, hey, man, they have this diet PT. And he really made sure that I knew what I was doing when I get there because, in the military, as most military guys will tell you from that time frame, it's a gamble. You get lied to, you get given bad advice, you can get really manipulated into a really bad career choice in the military, as what almost happened to me. I almost became what's called a nuke, which is like nuclear specialist in the military, where you work on nuclear reactors and the submarines and ships. And because I was, I've always been good at math, and I almost got roped into that. So Frankie made sure that I got steered clear of that. And so I just, really devoted myself to training. And it was one thing that I've always come back to many, many different times in my life, is that I really love working hard. and it's just very, very weird for me, is that I'm not happy unless I'm working really, really hard. And those hours upon hours of running and swimming and just PTing in general were just, I just loved it. And I was like, okay, if the SEAL teams are like this, because everybody told me they were like, oh, it's so hard, then I'm gonna like it. And for some reason, that mindset just really made me decide this is what I want to be part of, and I just really said, every morning I wake up and like look in the mirror, I'm like, you're the baddest son of a bitch on the planet right now, and you're gonna get up and you're gonna go work out and you're gonna do it every single day. And I don't know, it was just one of those things where I was like, I really want to do this. I just had nothing else in my mind other than this plan A. A lot of guys will tell you they quit because you have a plan B. There was no plan B for me. Like, a home life sucked. I was crap at school. Frankie's Fun Park, the only thing good about that was the girls. And I wasn't the best looking dude there, so I usually got like thirds, right? So I was like, all right, what else is there? Charleston, South Carolina, back then wasn't very fun. It was a lot of discrimination. Still very, very 1970s, very 1960s in people's thinking. They may not want to admit it, but that's the truth, And I just really wanted to get out of there. And it was something I said, I'm going to do this, and there's nothing going to stop me. And if I fail, then I'm going to die. So
that's beautiful.
That's incredible. One of the things I learned there was how every morning you would look in the mirror, tell yourself something positive, some affirmation, before you get up. And the other thing too that was interesting, you'd get up, Dan, and start working out at 4, even though you didn't even have a job, really.
Yeah, it's funny. Even I still hate doing it. Like, I don't know what it is about me, but it's like I really like working out at 11. Maybe now because I'm a civilian, it's my perfect time to work out. And I work. I'm basically my own boss, so I can kind of do that. But it's, for some reason, every time that I wake up at 4 in the morning and work out, I'm like, this is the stupidest thing ever. Like, what are you doing? And I end up having like these really, really great days for the rest of the day. But like, man, I really like sleeping. Like, I was known as the king of sleep in the SEAL teams. I mean, I could literally sleep 18 hours a day. We used to do these platoons called ARG Alphas, and we'd go float on these boats, on a regular Navy ship for 6 months at a time. And if you've ever been on a regular Navy ship, it's absolutely miserable. It's like the most miserable thing in the world. I was on the 2 oldest ships in the Navy, so air conditioning was non-existent in the Indian Ocean. And by the time you've been on a boat for 1 month, you're in pure hatred of mankind. Like, you hate everybody and everything because you're such confined quarters. The size of my kitchen, 18 of us lived there. You slept 4 above each other, and you can smell everything about every person. And the gym is about as big as your office. And so you got to have times where you can go work out. So literally the only thing for me to do was just work out and sleep. So I'd wake up 4 in the morning, go ride the bike, versa climber for an hour or whatever, eat breakfast, go to bed. Wake up at lunch, go in the gym, pump pig for an hour, 2 hours, eat lunch, go to bed. Wake up at 3 in the afternoon, go do 100 dips, 100 push-ups, 100 pull-ups, eat, go to bed. Midnight, same exact thing, get up, versa climber, whatever I didn't do cardio-wise that morning, work versa climber, row, do that for an hour, eat, go back to bed. So it was just the only way that kept me sane of like, I really want to physically attack people right now, especially when you're 18 SEALs together in one room.
Yeah.
It's so mega and alpha. It's like, please stay away from me so I don't hurt you.
What's the point of those trips out there?
So we were an amphibious ready group is basically at all times around the world right now. There's this group of ships with 3,000 or 4,000 Marines on there, no more SEALs. You have SEALs attached to them, like augmented, but they don't float anymore. At all times ready to invade and start a war anywhere there is, or react to a situation. So, like, remember the embassies are getting attacked in Africa. You can send an ARG there. It could be there 36, 48 hours, depending how far away they are.
Wow.
So wherever a hot spot is in the world, there's probably an ARG Alpha floating right around there.
Wow, cool. So what got you through BUDS training? From a mental toughness perspective. Actually, let's stop for a second. Tell us, in your opinion, what mental toughness is.
Mental toughness is, enjoying hard work, looking forward to hard work, not being intimidated by it. That's the only way I can define it is people always ask, what do you believe mental toughness is? And a lot of people's definition, really, it's just not being afraid of hard work. Instead of looking at it like, oh my God, this is going to suck, which I still do. I'm like, oh, this is going to suck, but it's like, shit, it's going to be fun though. Like, I'm okay. All right, let's go. That's just, I just think mental toughness is enjoying and looking forward to working hard.
Yeah, that resonates with me.
Yeah.
I do enjoy doing really difficult things, and for some reason I do find a lot of joy in there. And the question is for those people listening out there is how can you develop something like that?
I've always just come back to the point of, and luckily I come from a group of men who we all have the similar thinking. And the only way I developed it, I don't know if I developed it on my own or if it was just in there already, but I really like looking at a guy across me and just laughing. Like, this is stupid. This is the shittiest thing known to mankind. And you just laugh because it's so ridiculous. You're so cold. You're so hot. You're so hungry. You're so tired. You just look at each other. You just laugh. And I think that the only way that I was able to develop mental toughness or whatever version of it is, I'm not by far not the toughest guy, is I just laugh about things sometimes. And, I kind of have a sick sense of humor, and everybody always thinks I'm pissed off all the time. Like, dude, you're always pissed off. I'm like, actually, I'm really happy right now. And maybe it's just, my outward exposure, but it's like when I'm working really hard, I'm like a giggly little kid. I just love it. I love everything about it. I think that basically being able to laugh when you're working really hard and make a joke out of everything is good. And, it serves me good on a personal basis. It serves me really bad in my career because, people are like, you never take shit seriously. I'm like, dude, we're freaking wet, cold, and sandy right now. What's to be serious about? Like, I just had a guy pee on me, like, seriously. You want me to be serious in this moment, So, I've always been kind of accused of that. Like I kind of make a joke of things. I think that the only way to develop, I wrote this down a long time ago. The only way to develop mental toughness is to do really tough things all the time until they become normal.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth
that's
to
a
that.
powerful lesson right there.
Yeah.
Do really tough things until they become normal.
Yeah.
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 I train young men to go in the SEAL teams. I've been pretty successful at that. I've trained right now I'm at 33, and that's the one thing I always tell them: don't go to buds and be surprised. You should never be surprised by the intensity of the situation. Like as lawyers, you didn't do all this studying to go in the courtroom and look like an idiot, right? It's like, why would you be overwhelmed with all this education you've done? It's because you're not meant to be there. You didn't prepare, and you let the intensity of the situation overwhelm you. And that's just one thing I've always been able to say to myself is never ever let the intensity of the situation overwhelm you. And I just think that people, if they prepare their mind for that, they understand that no matter how hard you train, it's going to be much worse than you train for. Then go and do it. Train that much harder, study that much harder, work that much harder. And then if it isn't, it should surprise you. Oh man, that wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
That's how Buds was for me anyway. I really expected it to be a lot harder. And so I trained really, really hard to get there. And when I got there, I was like, man, this isn't that bad,
Said no one ever except you.
I had a hard time. Obviously, Hell Week was brutal. Hell Week is going to break every man. The only man I know not to get broke was a guy named Michael Chahosky, who is like the hardest man I've ever met in my entire life. The dude, like, he's just hard, just straight up hard. And I was pretty beaten up at the end of Hell Week, and that guy went like a 10-mile run the day after. So that was not in my realm of thinking. But in regular Buds, I just never really had a hard time with anything,
I loved what he said there. Dan, you mentioned, and Eric said it too, and one of the big principles about developing mental toughness, see, this is, because it's going to apply to business, it's going to apply to everyday life. When you're out there, it's not if you run into something hard, it's when. When are you going to encounter a challenge? It could be in your marriage, it could be at work, it could be with your kids, doing something stupid, like whatever it is. It could be a personal illness that you get, and you're either going to throw in the towel or you're going to fight. Whatever it is, like there's going to be challenges out there for people, and the day that you face the challenge is not the day to start building mental toughness. Like you need to do this beforehand. Like, and one of the principles you said was to train, harder than what you think the thing is going to be that you face, and I love that. So there's a preparation principle there. Fear, in my opinion, is directly related to the level of preparation you have. Like you can directly eliminate or at least diminish the fear of any given situation just by the amount of preparation you put into it. And I love how you experience that in anticipation of Buds. And then the other thing was do hard things all the time until they become normal. Like that's a huge mantra for me. A lot of people,
you're never surprised by the intensity of the situation.
That's
like
right.
You've exposed yourself to so many hard things that, like, you showed up to what any other human being on the planet would be like the hardest thing in the world, which is, Hell Week and Buds. And you're like, yeah, what are we doing? Like, it could have been harder. And so you just trained yourself and developed that muscle of mental toughness, and it made a huge impact for you.
Yeah, and I've heard that said another way by some of your peers, Dan, about do today what others won't, so you can do tomorrow what others can't.
Yeah, it's a really good mantra, and I was forgetting what I was going to say, but basically it was one of those things where I always just kind of like, it can always be worse. I just always had that mindset, it can always be worse. So, as a SEAL, I always just had that mindset, it can always be worse. And so I'd make little jokes about it to myself, like, if it was really hot, I'm like, well, at least it's not cold. If it was really cold, like, at least it's not hot. If I was getting rained on, drenched and whatever, I'm like, well, at least I don't have mud on my face. I would just say something like that. I'm like, at least I'm not with Roseanne Barr, something like that, right? I'd make a joke out of it, just whatever joke I could make of just like, as soon as because like any human being, you feel sorry for yourself, and like, especially for me, the last 3 years have been really hard just because, my wife was really ill, and, businesses and stuff like that, on a completely different aspect of physical, it was all mental. And I just have to keep coming back to that all the time. It could always be worse. It could always be worse, and that's gotten me through just a very, very long time. Like, every time I'm in this slump, I just kind of look in the mirror, and I yell at myself and I call myself bad names. And then it's like, dude, it can always be worse than this,
Yeah.
So get up, get off your ass, stop feeling sorry for yourself, and go,
Yeah, that pity party is a pet peeve of mine. And it's it's normal for all of us. That's the thing. Like, no one's really immune from it, but how you react to it is a defining characteristic. You just get up and do something hard, and do it today, so that when tomorrow something hard comes, you're ready for it, and you can handle it. And the other thing I think that I really gleaned from what you're talking about, and I heard this by a lot of your peers as well that are Navy SEALs, is embrace the suck. Your way of humor and embracing the suck, right, is when something's challenging, you just embrace it. Like, you just wrap your arms around it and say, look, dude, it could be worse. You crack a joke, like, whatever, like, this sucks, I just got pissed on, but whatever, like, at least I didn't get pooped on.
I think that's one of the things we all have in common with each other is, it's funny, I just did an event, it's called a Frogman Get Together, and we're all in business now. We're all doing, got guys up here in Seattle working at Microsoft, Amazon, to the winds. One of my buddies is running for Congress, et cetera. And we're all kind of like living your own lives. And then I had this, the foundation, I'm an ambassador for the foundation. They gave me money to bring all the guys together. And so I brought them together. And that was the one common thing was, man, it can always, this sucks. Like, my job sucks, my life sucks, but it can always suck so much worse. And then you laugh and you giggle about it. And, I did that because I was asked to do it for one, but I did it because I know how hard it is for me to really open up amongst my coworkers without being taken the wrong way. Because, I'm a frogman. We have a really, really crazy sense of humor. Like, people fall and hit their head on the concrete. I laugh about it, because that's just funny to me, because it's just the world we come from. Like, ha. And if he's hurt really bad, like, oh, shit. No, sorry about that. Not your first reaction is humor, because you see it all the time. For us, somebody falls, hits their head in the concrete. If they're still alive, it was a great day. It's a great day, right? If they get shot in the chest and their chest plate and they're still alive, that's a great day. Like, oh man, you got shot. Where everybody else like panicking. We're like, at least better you than me, So that's the one thing is if you just embrace hardship, like, I mean, you guys know, you look what you do to prepare for a case or whatever. It's just so many hours of it, and you can either gaff it off, make excuses about it, or just put your nose to the grindstone and just do it, knowing that if you do it, you do it the best of your ability, win, lose, or draw, you can look in the mirror and go, yeah, man, I gave it my absolute best, and I just got the shit kicked out of me. Yeah. Whatever. Moving on. Here's what I'll do better the next time. That's the one thing when I teach is I just tell people there's no bad decision. There's no bad decision. It's just the decision you're learning from. The only bad decision is not to make a decision, to just be complacent and just kind of go with the flow and be a sheep and be told and led and and that's your bad decision. Make a decision, stick to it, and if it fails, and all right, here's why I won't do that next time.
Awesome, Dan. Culturally, today, young people don't have the same challenges that, a generation ago had, you and I growing up. And a lot of parents will try to eliminate hardship from the lives of their kids so that, they have it easier than they did. And so, you're a youth football coach. You work with young people. Would love to hear how you develop mental toughness with young people who haven't been exposed to hard things. They've really been sheltered. They've grown up with relative wealth and ease and comfort, and their parents, for right or for wrong, have eliminated all hardship from their lives, and they show up in your world, and you're a coach, and how do you help these young people who haven't had the hardship, who haven't been exposed to these things? How do you help them develop this mental toughness we're talking about?
So what I'll say is going to be very, very unpopular, and people will probably disagree with me, but I know it works because I do it all the time. First and foremost, I'm not a coffee cup holding coach. And what I mean by that is when guys are running, I'm not screaming, come on, faster. I run with them. When it's time to do push-ups and sit-ups, I lead it. So that first and foremost is the difference between me and probably 95% of coaches out there is when it's time to work out, I work out. It's time to be the scout running back like I was last night against my son's high school team, and I'm so sore right now. I pick up the ball and I run. I don't got a helmet, I don't got pads, and I'll still truck those little fools, right? So they're like, hey, you want to see what a college athlete? I'll show you. The biggest thing I do is I do not pull punches. I don't pull punches, but I don't do it in a mean way.
What do you mean? What do you mean by not pull punches?
So when we're in the middle of working out and they start making noises, as you know, as soon as they start making noises, I will stop right there and I'll literally look at you right now. Look at you. Look at the noises you're making right now. And I tell them, this is you right now. This is exactly what you're going to do when things get hard. You're going to start making noises and whimpering like a little bitch. And this is who you are. I don't use the word bitch, obviously, but this is you.
I'm having Kokoro flashbacks right now.
And, when we go in the gym, I've written a lot of training, obviously, but when we go in the gym, I always make it a point I do not follow anybody else's rules. I follow my own rules because I'm a frogman and I know what the human capability is, right? I know what the mental and physical capabilities of a human are. I know that the limits that people train themselves to and the limits that are capable are two different things. And so we go in the gym, I'll usually do 10 rounds of something. It's not a CrossFit workout, there's no clock or anything, but we do a lot of lifting, moving, et cetera, for 10 rounds. And as soon as we get to 8 rounds, I'll look at him right there, I'll stop the workout. I'm with him, doing it with him. Stop the workout, I'll go, okay, listen, those 8 rounds right now, none of them counted.
Yep,
they mean absolutely nothing whatsoever. Nobody gives 2 shits what you do for 3/4 of a football game. Nobody cares. Nobody cares what you do for 10 minutes of the 4th quarter of a football game. Everybody cares what you do in the last 5 minutes of the last quarter of the last game. Right now, in the hardest moment of your life, this is who you are at this moment. This is what you see in the mirror, in the back of your eyeballs. This is who you are. This is how you're going to react under hardship. And I do that all the time with them. I do it individually with them, and I do it as a group, whatever. But it's one of those things that those kids have never been told that, or they've been told by their parents, but told in a negative connotation, whatever. The way I'm doing is negative, but it's actually positive. Because then I flip the coin. I go, and this is what we're going to do now. And this is how we're going to make it better. And we're going to do this over and over and over again until it becomes normal, until you decide that I'm going to either die or I'm going to freaking quit. It's just a simple equation, and I see that all the time. And I did a podcast a while back, I don't know, probably a year ago, and somebody was asking me, how did you get this way, whatever, and how do you think kids get this way? And the only easy way to do this, to make kids tougher today, is get rid of your gardeners. Get rid of your car washes. Get rid of all that shit that we do with our kids. I'm guilty of it too. And make our kids go out there, because I didn't have a gardener growing up. I mowed the lawn. Cars needed washing, I washed the cars, dishes, etc. All those things. And every summer for me, we had to go back to my grandpa's farm and cut asparagus and pick apples and all those things, right? I come from a migrant worker family, and it's one of those things where that's just normal to me. And I see kids who show up football practice, they haven't worked out a lick before football practice, and they're making noises, whining, whimpering, crying, and I'll just stop right there. Stop. Look at you. Look at you right now. I didn't ask you to be here. You came here. Maybe you can go blame it on your mom, whatever, I don't care. But look at you right now in a moment. Look at the way your teammates are looking at you. And usually that really strikes a chord with someone. They've never been spoke to that way before, because it's all gentle now. And I'm not a teacher, I'm a coach. I show up and I can say what I want to say and do what I want to do. And, and luckily I coach at a Christian school, and they're just like, just don't say the F word and we're good,
I bet that's hard for you.
That requires mental toughness, Dan.
Freaky frackety, and you Philly flopper, like, yeah, I come up with a lot of words, right? But the thing is, is like, these kids, nobody's ever told them how to be successful. They say, well, if you do this, this, and this, okay, you just told that to 50 kids. How did you talk to each kid individually? And I think that's one of the things I'm really good at, is I talk to every single person I meet individually when I'm in a coaching status, and I really pull no punches. I have no problem, even amongst my coworkers, telling them, dude, this is what needs to be done better. And it's funny, just the other day, my boss called me and he's like, hey man, this is what you need to do better. And I was like, oh bro, I didn't even realize that. Okay, roger that. And in the world, the SEAL teams, we do that all the time. We have no problem calling each other the carpet. We have kangaroo court on each other all the time. Before we kick a guy out of the teams, back in my day, you're going to get this before we give you this. And before we put paper down, you're going to get the fist. And we're going to fix you ourselves. If you can't fix you, then we're going to kick you out. And so my version of making kids kind of assimilate to that is to give them the fist. Like, here you go. I'm working out just as hard as you. I'm a 46-year-old man. I'm broken. I've had 13 surgeries, et cetera, et cetera. What's your excuse? What's your excuse? Your excuse is you sat on your fat butt eating Cheetos on the freaking couch playing Xbox instead of, getting out there and doing something, So I don't feel sorry for you.
That's quotable.
Yeah.
Sitting on your fat butt on the couch eating Cheetos.
Yeah. So Dan, you brought up a couple of things. Earlier you talked about how, you have a team of 18 guys and all those alpha males in one room. You just talked about, as a SEAL team, how, you're not wanting to kick people, you're wanting to help people, before you try to get rid of them. So here in Navy SEALs, you have all these elite individuals. But the thing that I respect most about Navy SEALs, not, from my limited perspective, is how you're able to work together as a team. How all these incredible elite individuals are able to assimilate your talents and work as a team. Can you talk to us a little bit about how that teamwork is developed, where you can, hold each other accountable, where you can align with each other, commit, and work together to accomplish the impossible?
Another way to say that is, how do you create a team environment amongst so many highly skilled individuals?
Yeah.
In my day, the team environment was created by the men who'd been there, right? So that you'd show up there, and one of my biggest life lessons that I ever learned was my first platoon. Maybe I was in SQT, I don't remember. It was my first platoon, and we got done doing what's called MAROPS, Maritime Operations. You're out driving the boats all night long doing map and compass, right? And you're out there, and it's freezing, you're cold, it's miserable. There's nothing good about it, right? And we came back, and it's probably 4 or 5 in the morning. We're cleaning up the boats and motors, etc. And all of us new guys ran to the shower, showered up, put our sweats on, and came out to start working. And I remember running out there, and my LPO, Bill Munn, was out there still in his rubber, and cleaning and doing anything. He didn't say a word. He just kind of looked at me, and he shook his head and went right back to working. And there's this mantra in the team that we always use: team, platoon, squad, swim buddy, fire team, squad, fire team, swim buddy, me. Which means everything above me is more important than me, right? And so you get that in the teams, and we develop that in BUDS, where if you're an individual, you really get hammered on. Secondly, in the teams, a lot of guys out there talking leadership and about the SEAL teams. SEALs don't need to be led. That's the biggest thing that people don't really get, is all of us are leaders, and we're taught that at a very young age in the SEAL teams. You are a leader. Strive to lead, strive to follow, right? But that you put a bunch of leaders together, and that's the one thing is, okay, I'm going to be accountable, absolutely accountable for my department, my job. And if I'm not, I'm going to answer to it. And I'm not going to answer to it from leadership. I'm going to answer to it from my peers, So even in BUDS, they do peer evaluations. But the big thing is everybody in the SEAL teams understands that the mission is absolutely everything. That your personal discomfort and misery means nothing whatsoever. The mission, the goal that we've set ourselves with is the only focus we have, and we do it to a fault. Obviously, our divorce rates are really high. et cetera, et cetera. We push too hard sometimes, but the one common goal is that every single person bites off on that and they believe in it to the whole heart. And if they don't, we get rid of that person. And, it's just different for us. For me is I've had a hard time working outside of that realm because I'm so used to everybody being that way. And so when somebody's not, I just sit there and I'm like, dude, what's up with you? Like, what do you mean you're going home at 5? I have a really hard time with this, right? I don't know what the word off is. I stay till the job's done. And it's just normal to me, and I'll have guys like, oh, it's 5, I'm out of here. I'm like, what are you talking about? Oh, my shift's over. I'm like, what do you mean you have a shift? Like, I don't have a shift. I got here at 5 a.m. just like you, and we're still out working, and you're getting ready to go home. Well, yeah. I'm like, well, we're highly, highly compensated to be here. Yeah, I'm gonna go. Like, beat it, dude. And you've just proven everything to me. You just show me everything that I need to know about you in that moment. And for me, it's almost irrecoverable. Like, I don't get it. I don't understand it. And in the teams, that's just the way it is. You show up early, you work late, you work through lunch so you can work through. We always had to say, hey, let's work through lunch so we can skip dinner.
That's funny.
It's just, we make jokes of it, like, hey, we're going to work through lunch so we can skip dinner. And everything was about Friday, and I think that, too many people take the everything's about Friday way too much and they do the work. And so for a frogman and for our community, the work is what we crave. The work is what you crave,
I heard that one of the let's put some labels on that. I love what you discussed with us there. So, and in a successful team with highly skilled individuals, first of all, you're recruiting highly skilled individuals, right, to be a part of that. Secondly, it sounds like everyone's committed to each other as teammates, to a common mission, and that they're selfless. Mm-hmm. So they put all of that before themselves. Those are at least 3 principles that I picked up from there, all of which will help create a successful team. Love it.
Yeah. I also love what you said, Dan, about you're all leaders. Like, you don't need to be led, that every single person is a leader. And as a leader, you're also committed to a cause greater than yourself, which is, you put self in the back seat compared to the mission of the team and the success of the team. Now, like Ben said, the SEALs attract some really elite individuals. Now that you're in the civilian world, you are surrounded by elite individuals, and you're also surrounded by people that aren't so elite. And how have you been able to create similar success in teams now that you're in the civilian world, where you kind of have a greater net that's cast out on different levels of commitment, different levels of talent, different levels of skill, etc.? How have you been able to create effective, powerful, results-focused teams in the civilian world?
What I do is I just allow people to do what they're really good at, and I stay out of their way. That's when it comes to leadership, people are like, hey, how to be a good leader. I don't know how to be a good leader. I can tell you how to be a really bad leader, right? I can give you points on how to be a really bad leader. Is making mountains out of molehills, not communicating with your people, coming down on your people too hard, etc. So all I do is I literally let people. What did I hire you for? Do it, and I'm staying out of your way. And if I need to get in your way and kind of steer you right or left, good. And it's one of those things where when I'm in charge, I recruit for a humanitarian team right now, right? And I tell people all the time, if you have an idea, and we're a really broad-scoped humanitarian team. We will untangle dolphins all the way to reacting to hurricanes, during the Bahamas, right? And I tell people, don't bring me an idea unless you can answer 3 questions. What is it? How much does it cost? And how are you going to implement it? If you can't answer those 3 questions to me, I don't have time for you. It's just delete. It's a simple delete. If you can't write a proper email, it's a simple delete for me, right? And it's one of those things where the people who answer to me, just, I think that's the one thing I hear all the time is, man, you stay out of our way. That's it. I just stay out of your way, and I'm kind of just looking, and okay, boom. That's the way the SEAL teams are. We'll have our chiefs. A chief is God in the SEAL teams, and my first chief was just awesome, Georgia Young. He literally just stayed out of our way, and every now and then he put his hand on your shoulder. You're like, hey man, this is what you need to do here better. Oh wow, and like your mentors, Chris Good, he's Command Master Chief of Buds right now. When he was my one of my first platoon guys, what we call old guys, like, hey, get here at 5 a.m. I'm gonna show you guys how to rig ladders for underway shipboarding. Probably the most dangerous thing SEALs do. And you're sitting like, hey man, this guy's got a family. He's coming in at 5 in the morning, and boom. And really it was, I'm going to show you once. And this is something I preach about all the time. I'm going to show you once. If you don't get it, it's my fault. I'm going to show you twice. If you don't get it, it's again, I wasn't clear and concise enough. It's again my fault. If I show you a third time and you don't get it, it's your fault, and I'm going to fire you. All right? It's simple, because you didn't care enough to listen, you didn't care enough to pay attention, and you don't give a shit. And that's the same philosophy I use now. Is I'm going to tell you once, you don't hear it, it's my fault. I'm going to tell you twice, you don't hear it a second time, then again, it's my fault because I wasn't clear and concise enough. I didn't give you enough information. I tell you a third time, bro.
Love it. So one of the things that, and I'd love to get into one of the experiences maybe you can feel like you can share with your SEAL team missions and how some of this applies. Before I do, just one of the things that I love that I heard there is what you tolerate becomes normal, right? And you have to be careful in leadership roles as to what you tolerate, because that can be the normal behavior. And you take ownership first and foremost of anything that might not have been done right, because you might not have explained it right. Now, most of the world will think that's backwards. They'll go, well, it's his fault. He didn't, like I told him, it's not my fault he didn't understand. But that's not true. A real leader will take ownership. Well, like I just didn't explain it good enough, and you go to the length of doing that, 2 to 3 times, and then they can. So a couple of really good principles there.
Yeah, that mindset really will help teachers too. If you're a teacher and you've got some kids in your class that just aren't getting the material, it's easy to cast blame on the kid. Well, the kid's not paying attention. The kid's this or that.
Right.
But to take that, hey, you didn't get it, it's on me. I didn't explain it right. So
right.
You didn't get it, I need to do a better job. And then ultimately, responsibility rests with the person. But that initial extreme ownership is a super successful mindset to help a teacher raise the level of performance of their students.
So Dan, can you share with us an experience where you were just absolutely terrified in the Navy SEALs, one of your like real life missions? And again, obviously you can't discuss anything that whatever is classified. I don't know how that works, but anything that you can share with us where you were just absolutely terrified, but you were able to apply some of these principles, get through it, and find success anyways.
Yeah, combat is obviously combat. Probably the most terrifying moment I had was on a training mission. It was in the 90s, and we used to do a lot of shipboarding back then. So you're either helicoptering onto a ship, or you're freaking hooking and climbing up on the ship. And I remember we were going to take down this little frigate. So it's a little frigate, right? Training mission. And, you're kicking the fast rope out there. We got to remember the antennas of the ship are up there high. So the helicopter's really high. And the ship is swaying back and forth. The ship below you is going crazy. And, so we're doing a 120-foot fast rope. We're probably got about 100 and maybe 90 feet of it down on the, out, and we're going to slide down. I remember when it was my turn to go, you're supposed to slide down. Well, the helicopter's over here and the ship is over here, so we're going to slide at a 45-degree angle. You're not hooked up. It's just your hands and your feet on the line, and you're going to slide down. Hopefully the guy on the boat, one of the guys on the boat is holding the rope, right? And I remember getting ready to go there, and in that moment, in that probably half a second moment, I was going to quit. I was like, I'm not doing that. If I fall, I'm going to die. And it was like, literally, I looked out there, I'm like, oh. And all you see is white all around you, because that's how much the ship is rocking and whatever. And I literally was like, oh. And I remember Georgie Young looking at me, he's like, go. And I kind of just looked at him, he's like, go. And I was like, fuck it. You fall, you die, right? Who cares? It's just the way it is. I remember sliding down that rope, and I'm like, dear God, don't let me let go. And I remember hitting the deck and just like, wow. That was probably one of those moments in my life where I had to put every ounce of willpower, and I really can't describe it properly because it's so dangerous. It's just so incredibly dangerous. There's a video of a Marine Corps helicopter hitting the nets and then flipping backward. That's exactly what we were getting ready to do. Only they were coming in low level because the waves are flat to do it, and they flared late, right? But you got so much equipment on that as soon as you hit the water, you got about 5 or 6 seconds to get that equipment off. And the equipment back then is not the way the equipment is now. Now we have cutaway bobbins and all kinds of stuff where the equipment will just fall off you. Back then you didn't. You had to get it off you. And so essentially, if you hit the water, you're going to die. And you're wearing all black, so which means as soon as you hit the water, you're in the black ocean, you disappeared. There was no big signaling devices then. There was just a chem light, so hopefully somebody sees you type thing. And I just remember in that instant right there, I was absolutely terrified, completely overwhelmed by the situation. had wanted no part of being there at that moment whatsoever. And it took another person to literally just kick me right in the balls and say, go. And I think if I wouldn't have gone, he'd have said it the third time, he probably would have punched me in the face, Hey, puppy.
Dan, that's the power of a mentor. That's the power of a coach. You mentioned earlier your best friend from high school, that both of you went into the SEALs independent of each other, and how he went into basic training first, and he gave you some feedback, and he gave you some advice, and then you just mentioned your leader there that gave you that encouragement. And that's the power of a coach that can really help you see things, motivate you, encourage you, face your fears, clarify your commitments, and help you make a difference and really perform.
Yeah, I love that. You were committed. You were committed to the SEALs. You were committed to the mission, but it didn't mean you were immune from fear.
No, yeah, and that's the one thing that I think people think doesn't happen, is fear is real. I like the night, I always get butterflies in my stomach. I always get sick to my stomach before I do anything, like a long run, bike ride, swim, O course, anything. I get sick to my stomach. It's funny, the night that I got hurt in Iraq, I didn't get sick, right? I didn't get sick to my stomach, and I just knew something was wrong. Something was bad. Everything in my power was telling me not to go on that mission. It was like turn my night vision on. My night vision didn't work. My laser on my weapon didn't work. My ACOG, or my aim point, the battery lost 5 years. It didn't work, and it was like everything in my power is telling me not to go on this mission. And it's one of those things where you go, well, if they're going, I'm going. And so I knew something bad was going to happen. I didn't know, it would be that bad, but boom. So.
That's awesome. Love it. So what are you doing nowadays, Dan? Let's wrap up with a few things. What are you doing now? What can you tell us?
Everything I do, I have 3 jobs. I like to stay busy. I have 4 jobs. I coach high school football at Cedar Park Christian. My son's in his junior year. My nephew's in his senior. One of my nephews is senior year, and the other nephew's in his sophomore year. So I coach those guys. I'm the linebacker coach. That's fun. I have a great time doing that. I work on a executive protection team for a very incredibly high net worth person in Silicon Valley. Remember, it's a massive team. We have a really big team. We have a good time. A lot of my brothers are on the team, and that's kind of my full-time job. I'm lucky enough to where I can work time on and then time off, work a rotation, so I get to work on my other projects. I'm also part of a global humanitarian aid team, so I'm the recruiting manager for that, as well as one of the operations manager when we're in the field. That's kind of my why right now. I really have devoted my why to helping people and to doing the best that I can to help people around the world in whatever facet I can. It's a great time doing that. Great, and I've been able to recruit 100 people for that team, and the best and the brightest in the world, and surround them with people who are willing to protect them. And I've been given the leeway to really go and find these people, from Harvards and Yales and et cetera, right? And then my 4th job, which is my baby. I don't really call it a job because I tried it as a job before. It used to be called Turning Steel, and it was the Ultimate SEAL Adventure, and that was a job back then. I created it when I was at SEAL Fit, and during I always wanted to make sure people had the answer to what happens after Kokoro, and I decided to develop it. Kokoro training is not SEAL training. Kokoro training is BUDS training, and so I wanted to create a company that people got to do SEAL training. Not from a tactical aspect, from the fun aspect of being together, hooting and hollering, doing missions, learning skills, not tactics, but just having an adventure, dressing the part, night vision, whatever. And I did that with Turning Steel, and I didn't have fun doing it because it became a company, it became a business, and so I sold that, and now I have a company called Spartan 7, and Spartan 7 is the same thing, Ultimate SEAL Adventure, but now I only do it a few times a year. And I've been doing it with just private clients. I don't do any advertising at the moment. And it's been great. The difference now is my mindset is different. I take successful people. I take them to some of the most amazing ranches in the country, and we train. We have fun. We hoot and holler, and then we do guest speakers, and we do lesson plans, and it's a year-long course, and that's something I've been doing now for a couple years now, and just it's fun. And that's all I can say is it's just a lot of fun for me to bring successful people in and put them in a team and then solve problems, solve very, very complex problems. I get at them and then critique the snot out of them, yell at them. I don't yell, actually. It's totally different.
I have a hard time believing you're not yelling.
I mean, there'll be times like during training where you're adding the stimuli, whatever. But the real facet is to show. I always tell people, like guys like you, especially who my clientele are, and I say, hey, you're a guy who's now doing ultra bike racing. In the back of your mind, you've always asked yourself a question: what if? What if instead of going to law school and going and opening these law firms, I became a SEAL, right? What if I became the military? What if? I answer the what if, right?
Yeah,
the difference is you can't devote, 2-3 years of your life to know what I know, but you can devote a weekend. And so over a weekend, I answer the what if, and I immerse you into it. I surround you with incredible war hero SEALs, not just SEALs, Brian Kontosh, who's a Marine. I surround you those people, and I let those people impart their lessons on you through training. So instead of just sitting in a classroom and talking at you, here, pay me a bunch of money, I'll sit you in a classroom, I'll talk at you for hours upon hours and bore the shit out of you. I'm going to do it. You want to learn mental toughness? I'm going to show you mental toughness. You want to learn problem solving? I'm going to show you. You want to learn leadership? I'm going to show you. I'm not going to just talk to you about it. I'm going to show you. I'm going to put you in there where you have to lead. And if you don't lead, you're going to fail, and everybody's going to suffer for it,
I love that. Yeah.
And sounds exciting.
You did talk right to me when you said that. I ask myself all the time, like, dang it, I made the wrong choice.
Your bike's a lot nicer than mine, so no. That's what I'm doing now, and I still train young men to go in the SEAL teams. I don't do it very much anymore. I had the gyms for a while. We had the big gyms, and I found out there's not a lot of money made in the gym industry.
Right.
There's just not a lot of money. So I sold that when my wife got sick, and it's been just now I'm kind of just those 4 projects I still work on. They're pretty passionate to me. I got to keep myself busy. The busier I am, the happier I am. When I have time off, I take time off. Like getting up this morning to do the podcast with you guys, it's something I did. Again, I've talked myself into, like, all right, you're going to break the routine because, I got really wrapped up in business for 10 years. Like why, my why was money. My why was money, right? And I was like, and I wasn't making it. And every time I didn't make money in the gym, I was like, what am I doing wrong? And really psychoanalyzing myself. And I wasn't happy. And so now that my why isn't money anymore, I make more money, which is funny. And I'm a lot happier. And so when I come home, I literally I get yelled at all the time. Like, dude, we're trying to call you. Hey man, I'm home. Or I'll try to email you. I'm like, if you want to talk to me, you need to call me on the phone, because I'm not going to answer that phone unless it rings. I'm just not going to. When I'm with my family, I'm with my family 100%,
I love it.
Love it.
Dan,
love the intention.
Dan, with our listeners out there, we got a growing base of people. It's awesome. If they wanted to get a hold of you and talk to you about any of the programs that you're doing, is there contact information we can provide?
Yeah, so Spartan7adventures.com, just Spartan with the 7 adventures.
Okay.
There's that. There's Spartan 7 Security. Those are my 2, companies that I run. And, if they ever want to get in contact, just have you guys give them my personal email. I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Perfect.
Stud.
Well, Dan, we've loved today.
Yeah, this has been a great day. Thanks, Dan, for sharing some time with us and sharing some of your stories.
Yeah.
Total respect for anyone who served, of course, in the military. We're not one of those. We're not the people that you would probably see take a knee on TV. It's a bunch of bullcrap, in our opinion. Just throwing that out there. Anyways, we stand proud with people who serve, particularly and such an elite level as you, and we thank you for your time and your service.
Oh, thank you guys so much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, Dan. Hey guys, thank you and have a great day.
Awesome.
Thanks for listening to the Principles of Epic Growth podcast, your path to epic performance and life with incredible growth.